Yes, I know. Don't play with that yet. Not yet.
All right, Barbara, let me know when you're ready.
Almost. It's almost ready for YouTube. Hang on.
Okay.
Let me just do that. I got it, and you can't. Come on over this way. Sit with me. Okay, we're all set.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm calling the Board of Health meeting on Tuesday, October 26, 2021 at 10:30 a.m. to order. All three members are present. Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you for joining. And the first order of business is public comment. So if anybody has any comment, please raise your hand.
You.
And Mr. Litt put in the chat, thanks for posting the meeting materials packet. And thank you to Barbara in the clerk's office for putting the 14 document packet together. So I'm not sure that we're going to get through all of the items for today. This is a pretty lengthy agenda. And I hope you don't think that I'm expecting us to sit here for 5 hours to go through it. So we'll just cover what we can. And I'm going to try to prioritize what we need to get through today and then figure out what we can push off. But we do have some pretty timely things that we need to discuss. So apologies for all of the information in the packet. So there were 3 sets of minutes circulated. I sent them out Sunday night. The 929 has 2 versions, the original version that Barbara had put together, and then I edited some and kept the track changes in there. Does anybody have any holds on those or any other changes?
I do not.
I do not either.
Okay, so I move to approve the 9/29/21, the 10/7/21, and the 10/12/21 minutes as amended in the packet.
I second the motion and vote aye. Sacco.
I vote aye, Medina.
Okay, and Malinowski's aye, so that passes unanimously. And then we'll just have the last Thursday night minutes will be in the next meeting. So we're pretty caught up on minutes. Okay, and Diane Legier, I'm going to bring her over. And she's our housing and food inspector. So I figured she could just give us a quick update on where she's at. And then if she wants to go on her way to inspections, then she can leave whenever she wants. Good morning, Diane.
Good morning. There we go. I'm in a mask because the lovely Erin and I share an office.
Okay.
So we're actually both in the office today. Erin.
Hi, Erin.
So
Excellent.
Say hello. We've had a very busy month. And it was a little interrupted because I've been spending 20 hours a week in class. With my soil evaluator and my lead determinator this month. I completed both.
Great.
Congratulations.
Thanks,
Awesome.
thanks. So now we have more time. So I was in town yesterday. I'll be in town all day tomorrow. This month, so to date, I've completed 10 food inspections. The goal here is to have all of the restaurants, which there are 19 restaurants, completed by 11/24, which is the day before Thanksgiving, because we understand that common vic licenses are coming, they need to be processed. And it's really important to be able, I don't know who approves them, if it's the select board or the town administrator in Southborough, but it's really important to be able to give the approving authority copies of all of the current food inspections before those common vic licenses are issued. So I should have them done by the first week of November, the restaurants, and then I'll go back to retail. We have a couple churches, and then residential are our lowest priority because they're the lowest risk. Heather and I were out at the Red Roof twice this month for a housing complaint. We actually found the conditions to be better than expected. I will be issuing a report. It got a little delayed because I've been dealing with a couple other emergencies. But the Red Roof management has been extremely cooperative. They have provided me with every document that I've requested. So I don't see any. Okay.
Right, and we also discussed with building, there were some structural pieces to look at, and they were out there last week, and they'll be working with them as well. They didn't think it was emergent, but it is a timely thing that needs to be addressed. So building's also working with them.
So is this a like short-term rental, or it's just related to the rooms or a room at the Red Roof?
From my understanding, we got a complaint about a room. We did an inspection of the entire facility. There
Okay.
were concerns in terms of building. We called about sort of the it's like a motel. It's like the outdoor breezeway walkway had structural cracks in it.
Okay. Got it. Okay. So it sounds like
It's been
in
my
gen-
understanding though, that they do house people here long-term, correct? In some of the rooms? I thought,
They are really, I mean, it's difficult to displace someone, but they are trying to move the to sort of hotel rentals, not long-term units.
okay.
I'm sorry, they're doing work on our fire alarm system. So of course. So I missed part of that, but Heather's correct. They actually have a lot of policies in place to prevent long-term residents. They had a big problem with it, and this summer they did kind of a mass eviction, and now they have policies in place that people cannot stay over 28 days.
Okay,
There's 2 exceptions. They do have 2 current long-term residents,
okay.
but it's not nearly as bad as what we had anticipated.
Okay.
Great. Thank you. It sounds like you have a plan in place on, who you're going to inspect when, and you've prioritized. So we definitely appreciate you being diligent on that. In terms of the common licenses that you need to get to the appropriate sign off, I can check with Mr. Purple on that to make sure that we, unless Heather, I don't know if you know where that goes. Okay, so I'll check with him and get back to you, Diane.
It's just a good way to keep the town informed that before they're issuing these licenses, they're seeing the most recent reports so they can make really well-informed decisions about who they want operating in town.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. Is there anything that you need from us, Diane?
Nope. I will give Heather the package. We'll probably just put it on a flash drive, and then we can direct it to whoever it needs to go to.
Excellent. Okay. Any other questions for Diane? No. Okay. Great. Thanks so much for joining, Diane.
No problem.
Good luck with the fire alarm.
Thanks.
Okay. So I'm going to first talk about 5A, which is the advisory position on the FY22 budget. So I don't know if anybody else watched their advisory's meeting last Wednesday. I unfortunately was not able to join, but they voted against the proposed FY22 budget. And then they took a subsequent motion and vote unanimously on funding the 2 contracts for the rest of FY22. So they essentially switched the funding source, and because the funding source that they would prefer we use does not have to go through town meeting. That's why they voted against the article. So if you remember, and Safdar, this, I know you weren't on the board at this time. Actually, I wasn't either, but I was following it. There was a position taken by advisory at that time to go to the reserve fund to fund the rest of FY22, and they voted that 4-3.
Okay.
And so when we decided to bring this article forward for this fall town meeting, I think the intent was we felt like we were doing the responsible thing by bringing it to the taxpayers to decide, given that advisory was kind of a split vote, even though, you know, by one vote, they had the majority to offer the reserve fund. So now we're sitting in a scenario where they've unanimously supported using the reserve fund. So it's really up, it's, you know, as a Board of Health member, I think what we need to care about is that these two contracts are funded through the end of the year. And I don't know that it's really I mean, personally, as a Board of Health member, I'm not sure that we have, I don't have a strong opinion either way, knowing that they're going to get funded. So that's kind of where we're at. We're more in the situation that we were going into annual town meeting. But I think, you know, advisory is concerned that there could be more grant funding available and or FEMA cares, you know, however, whatever options come out of public health. And they're also concerned about the permanency of positions. So that's kind of
So,
where
The way
we're
I
at.
understand it, so is they want to just have us with our proposed staffing to get us through a crisis, and they don't want to continue it afterwards to address many of the things we'd like to get to once COVID isn't the forefront. That's where my concerns lie.
Mhm.
That they're going to just, okay, we'll use the reserve fund and hope that grants get us through the next year. And then after that, COVID will go away, which that's not going to happen. And like, they just keep pushing us off. And my concern is that we're going to be back to where we were before COVID with bare bones, not doing what the Board of Health really should be doing. So that, like, they just want us to fund. I mean, I'd like to use grant money, but it's too uncertain for me, I guess. I don't know.
So the
other
next-
people thought that.
So the next topic we're going to talk about is another grant that we applied for. So hold that thought, because I think there's a lot of pieces that go into that, Nancy, that we need to think about over the next month as we hear more about this grant. So I'll talk about that next, and we could, or if you want to go to that, we can go to that and come back to this. But I'll let Safdar go ahead.
Yeah, no, I echo Nancy a little bit on this. Is my, you know, our goal has to be long term, and you know, I'm you know, again, grateful that we can fund this for another, you know, till the end of FY 2022. But you know, I think we have a strong case that, you know, this needs to continue way beyond the pandemic. That for the sake of our public health, and you know, in my mind, the sooner we can get a commitment, the better. Now, my understanding, so does this mean this will not be a warrant article at the town meeting?
It does. So no, that's up to us
That's
to
up to us
decide.
today. Okay.
So that's what we're talking. Yeah. So that's what we're talking about.
Okay.
I
So
think
we still can do that. So is the fear that the town meeting, it could get voted down at the town
Yeah.
meeting? What's
Well,
the fear about that?
So, okay. So, and I'm going to try to keep this high level.
Right.
So when we went to annual town meeting last year, we told the taxpayers, and it's an estimate, but the estimate was that taxes would increase 3.19%.
Okay.
Okay. So between annual town meeting and the end of September, the assessor goes through his process. It really starts like June 30th till the end of September. He goes through his process of doing the valuations in town, the split between residential and commercial, going through DOR, getting his stats approved, and then applying it to the tax base, like the residential and the commercial in town. And what happened between that time is that the valuations of the residential skyrocketed because so many houses, so it's based on the prior calendar year. So calendar year 20, because houses sold for more than their appraised value, essentially, or assessed value, it swung more on the residential side. So now we're looking at an almost 5% increase instead of a 3.1% increase prior to special town meeting. So the financial outlook is not good. There's nothing we can do, at least as of this morning. There's nothing that we can do to lower the 5%.
Right.
If we keep the warrant article intact, it's $100,000. $100,000 represents 0.25 on a percentage for tax increase. So that would be 5.25%. So the financial outlook for next year could be worse. We could look at a bigger swing than what we saw between residential and commercial, because it will be based off of calendar year 21 sales, which we know what's been happening since the beginning of the year. So that is definitely a concern. And the region, so the 4 towns that were part of for the greater boroughs, applied for an additional $300,000 grant that we're getting indications, and we should know for sure in the next 10 days to 2 weeks whether we're going to get that grant, and it's looking pretty promising. So there most likely will be a greater borough regional meeting as soon as we know about that grant to figure out the allocation of that grant.
So we're not going to find out till after town meeting, though.
I don't know. We could find out this week. It may be next week.
We might get an indication late this week, but
Yeah, I mean, the indication, Nancy, from that we're hearing is that it's very probable that we'll get it. It may get pared down a little bit. So we applied for 300,000. It would be 1 FTE for an epidemiologist and 1.5 FTE for nurses for the 4 towns. So the way that the current grant that we have is also 1.5 nurses. And that right now is split 4 ways. So we get 0.375 nurses for each town. The next grant would be the same number of nurses, but the challenge with this is that Southborough is the only one right now that has more than contracted nursing time. That, like, we're the only ones that have a public health nurse. So it's going to be up to the regional group, which is Heather's the point person for Southborough on the alternate, and then all the other towns have 1 point person. So that's gonna be discussed on what the allocation should be of that town. If we were to evenly distribute it and have our public health nurse, we'd have 1.75 nurses, and Northborough would have 0.75 nurses. So I think it's going to be an interesting conversation with the region because we'll have a whole full-time nurse more than some of the other towns. And I don't know how,
as an elected board member, I feel like my responsibility is to letting the town decide. I don't feel like the current advisory board really thinks much of public health, quite honestly, after last spring.
Yep.
So I don't know, I'd be more in favor of letting the town people decide, because that's who I work for.
So I think
and
it's-
again,
Sorry.
I don't want to lose what we've proposed. And I would hope that the town would think more of public health than just spending money on clocks and things. I know that has nothing to do with our funding, but I mean, if we haven't learned anything this past year, I mean, public health is crucial.
So I think it's two separate issues. I think it's, do we as the Board of Health think that we should raise taxes in FY22 to pay the rest of FY22? That's the first issue. The second issue is, what does the future of Southborough Health Department look like? Because we know, regardless of what we do with this warrant article, the funding is there for FY22. It's a matter of,
if this grant goes through, or are you talking the reserve fund?
so for FY22, it's the reserve fund. The grant is more of a future conversation, and that more has to do with FY23.
And they so they promised they will use this reserve fund. Like,
Yeah, there is a-
don't
there is
trust
a-
them at this point.
There's
honestly, so.
So they voted 7-0 that they will pay through 6/30/22 for these two contracts. So it's a matter of, and this is where, as the Board of Health, we absolutely have the right to bring this warrant article forward.
Mhm.
The decision, though, is not whether we should be paying for these two contracts. We are paying for these two contracts through 6/30. They're like we are legally bound to these contracts. There's we're not going to lose those contracts. Like, regardless, they're going to get paid. So what we need to decide today, and I kind of previewed the grant, but that's more of a let's digest that and talk about that after we know whether we get the grant, et cetera, is, do we want to go to town meeting and tell town meeting, even though advisory is saying they're going to pay for these two contracts, we want to raise taxes 0.25% to pay for it? That's where we're at. So our advisory is not arguing to not pay these two contracts through the end of the year. That's not their argument. Their argument is, we told the taxpayers 3.19%. It's now almost at 5%. We do not feel comfortable with the 5%, let alone increasing it to 5.25%. Does that make sense, Nancy?
It does, but
I mean, and I totally get your point. I understand.
I'm
your
not
point.
a financial person, and I wear one hat, and my hat is the Board of Health. So my
Mhm.
whole focus is protecting the Board of Health. And so maybe that limits me. And I just feel like we were burned a little by advisory in the spring. We were told one thing and it was not the truth. So you'll just bear with me if I'm a little leery.
No, and I totally hear you, and I understand, but we have,
As
We
long
have
as
signed-
that, and then so we can address it in town meeting in the spring, the next budget, if
yeah, I mean, I think we need to figure out, for the next budget, and I know we're mixing two different.
no, but I mean, if we
issues here,
can,
but
if we're guaranteed through the fiscal year that we're gonna be able to support our staff and that's fine, because we can go to town meeting, I guess, in May with another warrant to fight for after
Yeah.
June,
so it'll be March, hopefully,
right?
this year. It was in May last year.
Right, okay.
But yes, budgets for FY23 are due in November. So we need to, so so we need to figure out what we're doing with that soon. But we have this outstanding question, and then conceptually, I think the three of us need to figure out what we want the future of the model to look like, right? And, if there's more grant funding available, then how does that play into what the core staffing looks like?
So my question, and this is going back to, kind of what like Nancy said, I've got this public health hat on and really wanting to make sure our town's public health needs are met. And I think we all clearly agree that having a full-time director and nurse is essential. So I think, that's our starting point. You said the budget for FY23 is going to be due in November. So, that my fear is how do we reconcile that? Then if we're only guaranteed reserve funding till the end of June of 2022, can we wait till March town meeting? So say we want to propose this as part of FY23's budget, these positions, how do we do that at March town meeting then if the budget's going to be due in November? And that may be just, something I don't understand.
So I'm going to show on my screen. I did the budget the other night on including these two full-time positions. So what I'm going to propose when we get to that topic, Safdar, is, well, let me go through the process of what the budget
go through the process. I mean, that's probably
so what happens is Brian Valentine on the finance committee sends out an email in the beginning of October to all chairs of committees that have a budget, all department heads, and gives the budget schedule as voted on by the selectmen. So the selectmen opened up the warrant for annual town meeting on the 19th, October 19th. And on November 12th, all town budgets are due to the finance team, which is Brian Valentine, Carla McAuliffe, and Paul Savelli. So your finance director, your town accountant, and your assessor. And what Brian does is he essentially compiles all the budgets together between November and mid-December, let's say, and comes up with what the financial outlook looks like given XYZ assumptions and the town budgets. Okay. And then what will happen is the Board of Health, for example, will go meet with advisory and explain what we're asking for, why we're asking for it. And in this case, there'll be a lot of questions because it's a jump from FY22 to FY23, which we expected we expected it to be a bigger jump than it would have been if we had funded more in the budget last year, which we didn't do. We all knew that FY23 was going to be larger because of that. And then we'll go through a process, and then the warrant will get closed. I think it's the end of December. And so whatever is in the budget as of that date will get printed in the warrant. And then it will go to town meeting in March, and that funding will not start until July 1st.
Okay.
Because the fiscal year goes until June 30th. So there's an overlap between when town meeting happens and the end of the fiscal year. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Okay. It does. So it's, the idea of waiting till March, I think is anxiety, so then the real issue is do we wait and see what advisory says about FY23 in terms of funding these positions?
So my fear is that we'll lose our staff because there's a lot of uncertainty there. I don't think I would want to be working 6 months to, hopefully, these are people's lives. They're not just, I'm not a money person. Clearly I've made that. And so I think I'm a little more thinking of the actual people that we're talking about.
And I agree.
And I think
We have
I'll-
a great staff now who I see such great potential. And then with these adjuncts, with the grants and sharing wonderful people with other towns, I'm all for that. I just don't want to lose our core staff because we're being bullied, or for lack of a better word, where the Board of Health is always like the ugly stepchild over here. What can we do? How can we not? That's truly how I felt the last 16 years. We have to chip away, chip away, chip away for everything. And I'm kind of fed up, especially during a pandemic. You think would that be a little more, and I'm worried about Taylor and Heather. I don't want to lose them because there's so much uncertainty. So that's my other fear, I guess,
And I share that fear. I mean, honest, I can tell you from having worked with Heather and Taylor for the past 6 to 9 months, I can't think of two more perfect people to be here with us right now and to guide us into the future.
And they're very invested, and to be thought of as just sort of, a number on a grid or of a budget, the budget's always been a struggle for me because no one wants their taxes to go up, but they go up for a lot of reasons that make a lot less sense than public health. I mean, when I see the equipment that the fire department and the police department, and I don't begrudge them anything, but I think public health should be just as important as an amphibious, thing. How often do we use that? We're constantly throwing money at these things, and they're making our taxes go up. Where's the public health money during a pandemic? I don't get it. Everybody wants flashy stuff. You live in a town where it's a little prestigious, and all we want is showy stuff, and the public health gets nothing during a pandemic. I mean, come on, people.
I think Heather has
So
something.
I'll
to
get
say.
off my soapbox, but that's it.
Go ahead, Heather.
No, I did. I mean, I don't think Nancy and this after. It's hard to talk about the details of this grant that we don't know if we're getting or not. We may be getting less of it, but just so you know some of the details, the 4 towns are going to decide how to administer this. And so it might be on a 4-way split, which would, if we got the 1.5 nurse, just so you know, it's for contact tracing, and the latest it can run is till June 2023. It's only for 1 year past June 2022. So it's up until June 2023, and the nurses for contact tracing, which we're losing, CTC, which we sometimes send overflow cases to, and we're losing our per diems. So it's the 4 towns will decide, but it's either going to be administered, as a 4-way split or as sort of a per capita split, with Westboro having the largest population, then Northborough, then Southborough, then Boylston. And I think the per capita split may happen. And so we're not necessarily talking, if we got the full 1.5 and we got, the 4-way split is one way, but if we did a per capita split, we're looking at very small numbers for Southborough. I think it's like 0.25. They would have the original nurse as, I don't know, the contact tracing nurse on one model proposes, quote, surge only for Boylston and Southborough. So it's not necessarily going to be 0.375 nurse for that year.
So is it only, so you said contact tracing only, so is this really pandemic related activities, or would it, can we use that?
So here's what it said. So it said if 100% of the needs of contact tracing have been met, the nurse can do other public health.
Okay.
If all the contact tracing is met.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens when kids get vaccinated, if that's still going to be a forefront activity. So I guess what we need to decide is if we bring this to town meeting and it fails, we're still going to have a mechanism to pay the two positions through FY22. So the question is, do we want to bring this to town meeting to fund it through taxes, or do we not want to bring it to town meeting and it still gets funded? That's the question, the first question. And I understand all the concerns. I just don't know that bringing it to town meeting addresses any of the concerns, because it's really a future concern and not where we're at in FY22, because we know that we have funding for these two. That's what we need to decide.
So as the warrant article, so this warrant article, so we can't make this permanent for FY23 based on the warrant article as it's written, right?
No,
We
you can't.
at that time did for FY22, not knowing we'd have the reserve fund, right? That's how we ordered it.
Well, I was uncomfortable not bringing it forward, given that advisory had so much turnover, and it was a 4-3 vote last year.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So, and just so you know, Safdar, public health contracts, as I understand it, and I'm no expert in labor laws, but every year is a 1-year contract. We do not have the authority to do more than a year.
Right.
Now, if these were SAP employees, that's a different scenario. But contracts are different.
I just wish there was some way to inform, and maybe there is, the people of the town of Southborough that what's coming in March and what we're going to be asking for in March.
So from a process standpoint, Nancy, if we decided to pull this part of the article, I don't know if you know this, but there's a water portion of this article. So we actually cannot indefinitely postpone this article. We're going to have to amend it to keep the water portion. And we can, when we do that, if we decide to do it, we could at town meeting explain why we're pulling it and give a preview for what is coming.
Okay, I would feel
At town meeting.
comfortable with that, because if we don't have any guarantees to be, funding our staff beyond next year, I'm going to be, I would hope we would be fighting for them in March.
And I did say this at town meeting last year. If you remember, we amended the Board of Health budget to be lower than what was printed in the warrant. And I said we were trying to take advantage of funding that was available,
Right.
and that we would be coming back. So we can absolutely reiterate that again. Outside of that, I'm not sure if you're looking for more other than what we're going to go through in the budget review process.
I see. Oh, I'd like to, is Taylor on too, or Heather and Taylor? I mean, I'd like to know their
They're both on.
thoughts.
Yep.
How comfortable they feel, and if they don't like the insecurity of all of this,
Taylor or Heather, do you want to unmute?
Taylor?
I don't really have anything great to say about it, honestly. My initial reaction is that it's kind of like, I don't know, feels like I'm trying to be pushed out by a grant, which is not a good feeling because I got hired into this position. That's it.
Okay.
I guess.
That's fair.
I guess related to the FY22 discussion, Taylor. I mean, from your perspective, do you have any comment on that? On the town meeting versus the reserve fund?
I don't.
Okay. Go ahead, Heather.
I guess I would only say that I agree with what Nancy and Safdar are saying, but I don't have any additional comments.
And I think we just have a lot up in the air on the grant portion. Like I think we needed to be aware of it, that it was applied for, and that there'll be discussions at the regional group. And I had originally thought that we were going to vote on our budget today, but I think I'm going to suggest that we see what happens with that and think about this over the next 2 or 3 weeks on what we want to bring forward. But I do have the draft prepared for the 2 full-time positions. And that was in the packet. So at least we have that ready.
Okay.
So at this town meeting, so what I think we have to make clear at this town meeting is A, visibility, B, future needs, that, you know, I think the more we can prepare the town for this, I think, you know, I circulated what the points that we want to do, and Heather and Taylor, you know, thank you so much for helping sort it out, because you know the work you're doing more than I do. So, you know, whatever more we can, you know, put in there and everything else, I think is crucial. I think we still need to do that at town meeting. I still think we need to say, look, you know, these 2 positions are something that in our minds are permanent, and you know, that, you know, reserve funding is reserve funding, but they will be in the budget. And, you know, and again, it may not have that much bearing on it, but how will so where would the conceptual part is, how would the town vote on this then? You know, I mean, it's not going to affect us till June 2022. It's not going to affect us after June 2022, but I think this part needs to be clear to the town.
I agree.
At town meeting, that these positions, while the funding may be temporary, these positions are permanent, and we are going to keep them permanent. And however that looks in FY23 budget.
So I mean,
Absolutely.
I can run this by the clerk, but I think we can still probably produce our report.
Right.
Right. And we can speak to it, Nancy, like you suggested, and provide the report. And just so you know, there's going to be a QR code that all the town meeting materials will be available to. And the town clerk said that we could include our report as part of that, which will have, like, you know, the warrant and all that. So we can, I mean, I can certainly ask him. I don't see an issue with that. But I think that's a good point.
And I mean, the Board of Health has a lot more autonomy if you really look into it than I think we're given credit for. So, you know, as long as we can be funded by the reserve fund, I just don't want to continue being the puppet for advisory. And, you know, I feel like they just think they control us. And so using I'm thankful we'll be able to use the reserve fund, but I agree with Sadler, these positions are not going anywhere. Taylor will not be replaced by a grant. Heather will not be replaced by a grant. You know, unless the town, you know, we need to fight for that, for them.
And honestly, we can make this very data driven, you know, beyond COVID-19, the data that we have on needing to improve the public health of this town is there beyond COVID-19. So whether or not we want to discuss that at town meeting in November, I would feel strongly, and I would be glad to have, 2 minutes or however long that takes to really,
that would be wonderful,
have people say, you know what, this is beyond COVID-19. And if anything, what COVID-19 tells us is how well we've got 2 professionals who have worked so hard for us during this pandemic, and what they can do for our town in the future. And, just the simple things of one tobacco inspection can actually save a life potentially. You do this, or one housing inspection can, or, any, Taylor being at Heritage Day, talking about mental health. These are the kinds of things that have long lasting effects. And, public health is one of those things people don't realize it, how much it affects you, because the end result is us being healthy.
Right.
That's the end result of public health is people being healthy. So there's a huge part of people don't see the work that's involved in it behind the scenes to keep us healthy. So I feel very strongly about making this case at town meeting that this is permanent. However, we fund this till June 2022.
So Safdar, do you, and I see that the moderator is in the audience. So Mr. Semino, if you want to raise your hand and maybe give us some feedback on what you just heard with us kind of speaking at town meeting, if we choose to amend this article, if, here he is. Okay, I'm going to pull Mr. Semino over. I just want to make sure we're within, I just want to make sure we're within what the bounds of what the moderator would allow at town meeting so that we can properly plan for what we're going to say. Hi, Mr. Semino.
Hi there. I'm not great with Zoom, so I'm figuring out what buttons to push as we're speaking. Am I on mute? No.
Yeah,
No,
you're
we
good.
hear you.
You're good.
Okay. You guys are going to withdraw part of the article or make an amendment that has the effect of withdrawing part of the article. I don't have any problem or concern with taking a few minutes to explain why you're doing that and what the implications are going forward. If that is that what you're asking, Chelsea? Whether
Yes.
you get that latitude? I mean, you know, I can't
Yes.
give an hour, but
I don't want a half an hour,
how long do we need to do that, right?
a few minutes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Wonderful. Thanks,
Okay.
Paul.
What
Thank
number
you.
article is this? Article 3?
Thank
Three.
I should know, but I will.
It's
be.
3.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. I think. Frankly, I think people would appreciate that and almost expect it. You know, as part of the explanation for why you're modifying the article itself, the motion on the article. So, I think it's fine.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Paul.
All right. I'll hang out.
Okay.
All right.
And I just wanted to quickly, there's a comment in the chat I just wanted to acknowledge. So the reserve fund also comes from taxes, right? Ultimately.
Yes.
Okay.
But it was already appropriated at annual town meeting. So
Okay.
so it does come from taxes. It's not, but it's not raising additional taxes. So yes, that's true.
Mhm. And I still think the big picture, this is the drop in the bucket to the increase in taxes.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this
Yeah.
is such a tiny drop in the bucket.
It's not gonna,
This
it's
is, I
not
think,
gonna
what
solve.
it is. Yeah, it's not going to solve our town's
No.
budget problems or
No,
the fact that taxes are going up, whatever we end up doing, you know, what given what the Board of Health needs. So.
right. I totally agree. But I guess I just.
No, I understand. You don't want to use tax money if we don't have to. I get it.
That's what they're coming at. That's where advisory is coming at. And if you listen to their meeting, I mean, they were very clear and they were very supportive of, I mean, they were unanimous in supporting paying for the contracts through the end of the year. They were not unanimous last year.
Mhm.
So I think,
No, they weren't.
I think doing this process showed to me, it made them take a position on supporting, you know, the employees that we have right now. So I think that was a positive, at least in my mind. I can, you know, I hear your points, Nancy. I think they're trying to figure out the best solution from the financial perspective, but they're still honoring what we have.
Right.
You know, I don't think that it was, you know, discrediting anything that the Board of Health is doing.
Yeah.
I think they're, I don't know what their position would have been if we were still at the 3.19% scenario. It may have been totally different.
Mhm.
They're reacting to the information that they have at this time.
Okay, fair enough.
Um,
And my other question is, so we will still be present at March town meeting then for our budget? Like, I think that's.
Oh, yeah.
We should
Yeah.
prepare the town for-
Yeah.
We are not. So, this is really, we strongly, that message, as long as I appreciate Mr. Semino saying that, we just need that messaging needs to be there for advisory and for the town. That
yes.
this is not.
It's
this is
probably
not-
going to be like the third time we've done this, because we had to kind of do it in the spring, then
Right.
we get money, and then we have to keep tabling it, because fortunately we do get grant money or whatever. But at some point, I imagine that will dry up, and then we'll have to really be begging for our, but so it's probably going to be more of the same in March. But who knows?
Oh, I think you're right on, and I think it's going to be worse
Yeah.
because of what I explained with what the market's doing.
My other question, Heather and Taylor, what I would definitely is if we prepare for a 2 or 3 minute talk or however we do this, is whatever information you can give me in terms of, I think you guys have given me a lot already, but I really, if there's any good data about that you have, I think it would be very helpful, moving forward. I know all the work you guys are doing. I just need to, I want to make sure I make that case at town meeting, as much as I can, that this needs to be funded. Taylor and Heather are working with so many other boards of health collaborating right now.
Right.
And
the
Well, not
schools.
only that, they've
Schools,
met so
right.
many people in town. I feel like they've been
Right.
visible. I feel like
Right.
when you go to town meeting and you're saying Taylor and Heather and mentioning them, there's a lot of people in the audience at town meeting that are going to
That are
know
gonna
who they
know.
are. And
Yeah.
we haven't always had that visibility. So, I mean, I think through all the vaccine clinics and everything else they've been doing, whether it be in Hopkinton or Southborough, people know them. So, I mean, that's helpful.
in fact, Taylor, your name came up when I was talking to somebody at the Experts Board of Health yesterday. Because again, that goes to how outreach you're doing to get our kids healthy, about 5 to 11 year old vaccines. So.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to suggest that we do is we kind of got a preview on some things that are still up in the air. I did have the opportunity to talk to the finance director this morning and asked if we could be a few days late with our FY23 budget, because I am out of town the week the November 5th to November 12th, and it's due on November 12th. So I would rather have a full picture for the board of, I don't want to rush this decision. I think this is extremely important that we have it well thought out and that we are comfortable with the direction that we're going in. So I would like to schedule a meeting for the week of the 14th, November 14th. And I know that's outside of when our regular meeting is
I
scheduled
just
for.
got to
but-
run to my calendar. Let me. be
Okay,
right back.
okay.
Okay, I can do the 16th, 17th, or 18th.
You want to do 11/16?
Sure, if that works for Sadler.
That's a Tuesday, right?
Yes.
Saftar, is that good for you? You're on mute.
Dr. Medina, you're on mute.
Does that work for everybody else too? Like in terms of that?
The 16th? Yeah,
Yeah.
or the 17th or 18th works for me too.
The 17th, 18th, I'm working all day. 17th, I'd be really tight in terms of meetings. So Tuesday would
Okay.
definitely work the best.
Good.
Heather and
okay.
Taylor, does that work for you? The 16th?
Yeah.
And Barbara? Okay. Do you want to do 10?
Sure.
10:30, is that, 10:30 okay?
10:30 is great. Yeah.
I'm
That's fine.
wide open that day, so.
I should
okay.
have
Okay,
a
so let's
meeting
do,
that ends at 10:15, so I'll be ready to hop on at 10:30.
so let's plan on talking about FY23 budget and whatever we don't get through today.
Okay,
Because we have our regular scheduled meeting for the 23rd
right.
at
At
12.
noon. Yep.
So if we have an agenda like this, I'll break it into 2 meetings,
Yeah.
but if we can get it all done on the 16th, I'll do 1 meeting. How's that?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, and
Okay.
it's in the proposed budgets in the packet for you to review prior to
Mhm.
that meeting with all the increases in there. So I did not increase anything below salaries. I kept that all flat. So I did increase and I put in a 2.8% COLA, which is what the SAP, personnel board will go through their process of evaluating that, but I just plugged in 2.8, which is what everybody's supposed to do.
Okay.
Okay, so that's built in there. Okay, so now we need to decide on what we want to do about Monday.
So I guess I'm okay, with amending the article and readdressing this in March, as long as we can fund everything. Is that what you're asking?
It is. Yep.
All right, just to be clear, that the warrant article would have only covered us till the end of till June 22.
That's right.
Yes.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I think
Yes.
that's the part that we have to say is that if that is the case, then I think, and as long as we get some time to talk about our future vision to the town,
Right.
Yes.
that,
And that likely in March, there will be, this will rear its head again unless we get, some miraculous way to fund it. But we're going to be fighting for our staff, and this is
Yeah.
why. And
honestly, COVID-19 is not going anywhere soon. I mean, I think there's a reality that there's a lot of people's minds that it's gone. And even when we get the younger kids vaccinated, as Heather and Taylor will tell you, the high school involves just as much contact tracing as it did last year when none of the kids were vaccinated, and we're well over 80% of our high schoolers vaccinated. So it is really, whatever help we may get from the outside for contact tracing is nowhere near enough. I mean, this is going to continue.
the sequelae from it is ridiculous. The other results of it that aren't even,
Known yet.
known yet.
Yeah. So, Safdar, are you comfortable speaking? So if we move forward and amend Article 3, are you comfortable speaking to this and giving a few minutes of what the future holds for health department?
Absolutely. I think that guide, please, that Word document that's circulating, please feel free to add anything else to it. I think I just sent another email last night about some other public safety issues.
Yeah, so I'm going to pull that up in a second because I need to get that to the clerk today because he's going to print it. For us.
Okay. Oops. Okay.
So I'm going to pull that up in a second and we're going to vote on it.
Okay.
Okay.
And I can use that as a basis, but there's no slideshow, you said, right? We can't use
No.
slides, right? Okay.
No, but I think what we obviously just had a lengthy discussion about this. So I think you're well prepared to speak to it. I'm comfortable with that. Nancy, are you?
Oh, absolutely. I
Okay.
would.
And
I don't love
will.
public speaking, so I'm all for it.
Okay. And I will be, so this is a joint article between Board of Selectmen and Board of Health. So I am the Board of Selectmen rep on this too. So I will be up there, and I guess I'll talk to Mr. Semino after this to figure out how we'll split it.
Okay.
We're gonna have to divide the question and whatever, but I will be there too.
Okay.
So I'm gonna make a motion. Oh, Mr. Semino is raising his hand. Bring him back in.
If I'm understanding what you guys are intending, you are going to amend. Well, look. Somebody is making a motion on Article 3. Then somebody, if I understand correctly, somebody is going to move to amend that motion in order to, modify, in order to step away from the funding that you guys are seeking until March. If that amendment, if that motion to amend is successful, then there isn't anything to divide.
Right.
It will be gone.
Okay.
And I don't know if you're intending to get the amendment to the clerk in advance, but I would encourage you to do that.
I will.
Oh,
I
okay,
will.
yeah.
Yeah. So you're right. I don't have to, I will take the amendment prior to, so I don't have to divide it.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I will talk to the clerk.
Okay.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Fair enough. Bye.
Okay. So I'm going to move that we support amending Article 3 at special town meeting to strike the additional funding as requested in the Board of Health budget and benefits budget.
Okay, I second the motion and vote aye. Go ahead.
Yep, and I vote aye, again, with the provision that we have secured reserve funding until the
Okay.
2022, and that we are
Yeah,
proposing
exactly.
this for
Okay, so
2023 moving forward. So I don't know, I
We
just,
should, maybe
so
we
let
should
me-
redo it. We should.
so
probably
yeah, I
redo
withdraw
it.
my motion. I withdraw my motion.
yeah,
So I move that the Board of Health supports striking from Article 3, the additional funding requested from the Board of Health budget and the benefits budget due to reserve fund commitment from the advisory committee for the remainder of FY22 and continued discussions on core staffing being brought forward for FY23.
Much better. I
Okay.
second the motion and vote aye, Sacker.
Okay.
and I vote aye, Medina. With
Okay.
that,
And Malinowski's aye.
with the
And I also move that Dr. Medina will speak to the amendment on the article from a Board of Health perspective on the future of the health department.
I second the motion and vote aye.
and I vote aye.
Malinowski, aye. Okay. So then I think we're covered with you representing us on Monday.
Okay.
Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up the report. And I have the version that Heather and Taylor were able to edit. Can everyone see my screen?
Mhm.
All right. So thank you, Safdar and Heather and Taylor, for taking the time to go through this. I think we probably need to put a summary at the top that explains that, you know, we're indefinitely postponing, or we're amending the article to not request funding at this time, but there still are needs of the Southborough Health Department for the future. And the below outlines what those needs and are.
And I think that wording in that introduction, to be really strong, is like the only reason it's amended is because we have secured the funding through the
Yes.
reserve fund. That in no way changes our vision for the future.
Right.
And I can, work on that paragraph and share it with all of you, but something to that effect that we are not changing our vision. And it is only for the only reason we are amending is because we have secured funding through the reserve fund. Because otherwise we would be fighting for the end of 2022.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I was good with the content on the current work and the future. I mean, I think it captured what we discussed in our working session. Nancy, what were your thoughts on that?
I think it looks great, actually. Yeah.
Okay.
the only thing
So-
I was gonna, sorry.
Go ahead, Safter.
The only thing I was going to add was, at some point, and Heather and Taylor, if you can just guide me on that last email on, whether that should go into future or even some current work with public safety. Like that's the one department we didn't say is put in there, I think, is collaboration with public safety on accident prevention, injury prevention, poisons, things like that. So, I can put that in both because I think that there's already going, some work, and then we can expand on that. This
Yeah, I
needs to
think
be a
that would mostly be
collaboration.
future. I don't think we're doing
Okay.
much of that now.
But that
So
again,
what about the third bullet though, on the future? Collaborate with other public safety entities in town to work on emergency preparedness and crisis communication for residents. Can you just expand on that bullet?
yeah, absolutely. I can expand on
Okay.
that bullet with, whether it's, yeah, and we can say, working on, poisonings or just, safety campaigns such as bike helmets or whatever I don't need to be too specific in there, but just those are the general themes about it. So,
Yeah.
We could
Is
do
everybody
another-
okay with?
We could do like a bullet right underneath that too, just saying like, what you were saying, Dr. Medina, like about, doing like some collaborative safety checks and outreaches as
Right.
well.
Right.
It kind of goes hand in hand.
yeah, actually, that's a good one. I'll put collaborative safety checks because that can include car seats and all sorts of other
Right.
stuff that are public health issues. So,
Mhm.
all right.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
Do you think you can get this to one page? Like if I'm just
There's
trying
some
to,
spaces in there, so it could be edited to get rid of.
I
some
know,
of
I'm wondering
lines.
if I can do that here, so that way we can
Yeah.
just,
the-
just
Yeah.
because I think that it'll be easier.
right.
Absolutely. Yeah. People don't
There you
like a
go.
million
You're on
pages.
one page. No, were you on one?
Um,
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, I
You're
am.
on one page, yeah.
So if,
And even with that additional line, I think we'll be okay.
And
I
I
wonder
think we
if we
could
can
make
make
the
it-
title smaller and then it would be good
yeah,
too.
but I wanted to put like a disclosure at the
Yeah.
top too. So I just want to have this voted on so that we can get it over,
Yeah.
over to them.
Will that fit on one line?
Well,
Could we get rid of long-term goal and then?
yeah, that's, yeah, we're on,
There we go. Perfect.
and then,
Yeah.
We
you
could
wanted it,
probably put a couple lines at the top for a summary.
right? Do you want me to just type what you said about the second bullet after the public safety? So that
Yeah,
way we
you
can,
could say collaborate with public safety on
safety on, what did you say? Safter had a term
Something-
for it.
Safety, I don't want to repeat safety, but something about like routine checks or, how can we word it? I think we all know what we're thinking about, but just trying to get that.
I know.
Whether you have a bunch of kids come down and everybody checks their bike helmet.
you could say like
Parents come
outreach,
with-
you could say collaborate on with public safety on outreach
Outreach for community safety.
for community safety.
Perfect. Perfect.
And then you could even say like IE
Bike helmet.
car seat.
Car
check.
seats, helmets, yeah, or something, yeah. Perfect, yeah.
I don't want to go into the second line.
You could
Perfect.
do safety helmets instead of
That'll be okay, yeah.
And then here, we're gonna do, Um, mm,
You could say utilizing like the rescue plan money.
mm,
No,
well,
It's the reserve,
but we're
right?
not,
Oh, yeah.
because this is reserve fund.
reserve fund, sorry.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave it open. I think I should leave it open to other town funds. Just
Yeah.
because let's say that, that there's an interdepartmental at the end of the
too.
year. Yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense.
so I'm gonna say the Board of Health is utilizing other town funds for the, 2 full-time or to supplement. Because it's just the incremental that we're using, right? The 2 full-time positions, as listed in the warrant. However, this does not, change our vision for core staffing, for the future of the Southborough Health Department.
Oh, do you see Tim Litz?
He said
Oh,
permanent.
no, I can't because I'm sharing my screen.
He wanted to make sure we pay permanent somewhere. So permanent, the positions, I think, right? Yeah.
I'm trying to keep it simple enough, but to
Yeah,
get like a clear message across.
You could say like below is examples of below are examples of
Current and future needs.
current and future needs of the department. Current and can you scroll down actually? Thanks.
Yeah.
We're not on one
You
page.
could say, oh,
I know.
but we could make the font smaller.
Right here, 11.
I mean, would front and back be okay if we use 2 pages in the future?
You could,
Yeah.
Or get
I
rid of
was
the
just trying to-
gaps, like those big gaps in between the.
Yeah, or just the gaps.
Yeah.
The gaps.
And
I'll
at-
play around
at
with it
the
to get it.
bottom, the future with the animal concerns, we do have an animal officer. You could strike that sentence there.
Okay.
I think the concern was the raccoons.
Mm.
Or beavers.
Oh,
True, I
beavers.
mean,
I'm
that's
sorry.
all
You're right. It was
concerns,
beavers.
right.
It was beavers. That's why we listed that in there.
Okay,
But
Yeah. Yeah.
if we're okay with the content, I can play around with the formatting if we're all okay. I just want to make sure that we all agree to what's in here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we go down to the future again. Maybe we can tidy up the overdose one and make that, because we've talked about collaborate. Did we talk about collaboration with YFS and Senior Center above? We didn't, right?
Yeah, right above.
Well, you have
Survey,
the
that's their
survey.
survey, but that was
yeah,
their data. I wasn't really collaborating with them. So, so I wonder if we could just say, put data collection and tracking overdoses in that need education, outreach, and prevention work, and put data collection, tracking overdoses in there.
Got it. Here.
and a less line. Yep, take away a line.
And then that would take away that line. If we take away the animal line, then we should be there then. And then, should we strike the animal?
Well, future, it says create sustainable funding.
Yeah, so we can,
Do we need that?
we probably
do.
don't.
We-
I think that's important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we just, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Bring
I
it
think that's
on.
a very important.
Yeah, there we
Part
go.
of
Then we're done. Done. All right.
Okay.
Mhm.
I mean, it's not a comprehensive list. It's just some examples.
Right.
I'm gonna put future needs.
And I'll make sure that that's actually in my little, my.
Right.
my-
It's not that we're not
Okay.
gonna do,
This
it's
is
not that we're not
right.
gonna
This is
do
just a
animal
glimpse.
concerns.
Oh, I like
In
this.
the top part, maybe just say that it's like a brief overview instead of like just showing that it's not comprehensive list.
So below, well, I put examples. Do you think I need to put
So
more?
below is a brief overview. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's much, yep,
Yeah.
good idea.
What do we think?
I think
Go ahead.
Mr. Lit wanted the permanent up at the top.
It is.
No, he wanted, I think, he was talking about before 2
In
full-time
the
permanent
title, in the
positions.
title.
Oh,
Oh, in the title. Okay.
Oh, yeah, continuation of 2 permanent full-time
For full-time
positions.
positions, right.
Well, funds to
Continuation.
supplement the 2 full-time permanent position. I think that's what he wanted.
Yeah, right in there, he wanted that, right, under there, yeah.
Yeah.
And how can we get that title better? Because it's got 2 different things there, the positions and then the regional approach. So there, it may be difficult because we want, those are sort of 2 separate. There,
What do you think?
I think,
Good. Works for me.
all right.
But do you want to put funding of 2 full-time positions?
Yeah,
Not continuation of.
Well,
Okay.
yeah.
I think I should probably put Article 3.
Yeah.
So they know what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
I keep trying to scroll down and I can't.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you want me to?
Okay.
I know, I've been trying to do the same thing. It's like,
Sorry.
It's fine. Okay, my only thing that I wanted to make sure was there was the test and stay, which it is. So that was my only last thought. I think it looks great.
I do too.
Okay. So thank you again for all the work that you all did on this. So I move to approve the report for fall town meeting for the Board of Health report, and it will be, I will request to the town clerk that we print it, and it will be on pink paper.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you need me to second that? Or no, that wasn't a
Yeah,
motion?
just don't put the
Okay.
pink paper in the motion. That was just a side.
Okay.
All right, so Nancy, you seconded?
I second the motion and vote aye. Yes.
and I
Sorry.
vote aye.
Okay, and Malinowski's aye. So I will get this to the clerk as soon as our meeting's over. Okay. Does anybody have a hard stop at noon?
No.
Zaftar?
I actually do, yeah.
Okay.
So if we can
So
just get through some.
what I'm gonna pick a bunch of these things to the next meeting, but I think, Heather, in terms of priority, the vaccines
Mhm.
are probably important to talk about. Should we skip over to that?
Sure.
Sorry, and before we leave fall town meeting, I'm gonna post a meeting for us before fall town meeting in case we need to talk about anything. So I'll post a meeting for 6:30,
Oh, okay.
just in case we need to say anything to each other
Yeah.
before.
Oh, that's
fall town meeting.
fine. I have
Okay,
jury duty that day in Fitchburg, but I'll be back by 6:30, I'm sure. I better be.
okay.
God.
I mean, I don't anticipate us having to say anything, but just in case.
No, but that's smart, just in case. Yeah.
Okay. So Heather and Taylor, I'm going to turn it over to you for item number 8.
The vaccine update, there were 3 lines on the vaccines to discuss. The flu clinic was successful. We vaccinated seniors as well as residents and employees, and the vaccine, we have no more flu vaccine. So we're done with
Excellent.
flu vaccinating here in Southborough. Thank you to everyone who helped. And secondly was booster. This has now been approved by CDC, both Pfizer, which we've already done 3 out of 4 of our senior center booster clinics, and homebounds for Pfizer. CDC has now approved Moderna booster. We just put in an order literally yesterday to get Moderna boosters, we think in about a week. And we're going to get a good number of them, and we're going to look again at homebound. We're going to look at Senior Housing Authority, Colonial Gardens, employees, and senior center. So that's coming in the next week. When we have exact time frame, we'll be scheduling those. The third vaccine clinics we're also scheduling is for the ages 5 to 11. They're expecting the FDA EUA at the end of the week, and CDC ACIP meeting early next week. So the state is really jumping out in front on this. So we've already put in our order in Southborough for 300 doses of the pediatric Pfizer vaccine. So we are intending to work this locally and sort of regionally with our greater boroughs, with the 3 towns of Boylston, Northborough, and Southborough. In collaboration, we intend to get sort of a messaging offering what we think will be 3 clinics, which will then be repeated in 3 weeks for second dosing. But we are anticipating 2 to be held in Northborough, 1 to be held in Southborough. So we're meeting with fire and schools and sort of nailing down those dates and the location, but this is coming very soon. The state has said that they're going to start shipping with the EUA, not even wait for the CDC ACIP. So they're intending to get us the Pfizer early next week. And we're intending to do first dose clinics within, 10 days of receiving the vaccine. And also we're not going to have time for our survey that we did of residents, but it was preferred modes of communication for our residents included email. So we put an interest list for residents who are interested in vaccine for their 5 to 11-year-olds, and we will email them when we have the dates and the location, but we've already had roughly 230 responses.
So as of today, we have 270 responses.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we have a lot of folks interested in a vaccine for their 5 to 11-year-olds.
And if I may, I got a ton of positive feedback about people being able to sign up for this. So thank you for putting that together, because I think people are like feeling some sort of relief knowing that they'll be notified when it's available. Yeah. So
Right.
that was great.
And that might be right. For Safdar was asking about data for town meeting, that we've started to do the outreaches per the community survey and outreach for the 5 to 11-year-olds. Yeah.
One thing, just of note while we're talking about an email list, I would want to look into in the future is constant contact. I don't know if we have that as a town or not already, but for like a fee, which I don't know what it is, you can have an email list specifically for Board of Health or whatever you want. And then as you gather people, they can just unfollow it. So they don't have to like contact us to say like, I don't want to be part of this anymore. Which would be another good way to get things out to people in the future.
So I'm pretty sure we do have that, Taylor. I'll get back to you. I'm pretty sure we do.
Okay, just a thought.
That's
That's a good thought.
I
Agreed.
will follow up with you on that.
I think this is the perfect example of why because as Heather and I were talking last week, I mean, this may not be available in most pediatricians' offices right away. And I think the fact we can do this for our children and the safety of our entire town. This is beyond just that age group, I think is wonderful. So, we may end up ordering more vaccine, it sounds like, Heather, judging from the initial interest. that we
Yeah.
have. Yeah.
Northbrook put in for 900, and like I said, we're going together, but yes, we may be ordering more.
And the timing is good too, because you don't want to limit people at the holidays from seeing their grandparents if the kids
Right.
aren't vaccinated.
Which is why we're trying to kind of push it out on
Yeah,
the sooner side than not, because I think people are
Mhm.
anxious to get their kids vaccinated for the holidays, which we
Mhm.
would like to see for them as well.
Do we know,
Wow.
so do we know, are we gonna wait until we finalize our clinic date until we have the vaccine in hand? Or do you know where we're at with that planning?
We have
Well-
tentative dates already.
Okay,
We need them approved by, we're looking at a school site, so we haven't gotten final approval from the superintendent about our site.
okay,
And yes, vaccine in hand, but, or the shipping notice.
okay,
It's a shipping notice, but they feel pretty confident that'll be next week with the shipping.
Great.
okay. Okay, that's great. That's great news. Anything else on vaccines?
When we get our Moderna, we're still talking about what the dates are going to be, only because I think our priority will be to vaccinate the 5 to 11-year-olds, just because they haven't had vaccine yet.
Okay.
And then get some dates out for Moderna boosters.
Right, and we have to coordinate with our vaccine staff, with Aaron and
Right.
our SAM and VNA. We can't vaccinate on days that Northborough is doing Moderna or
Yeah.
children. So
Okay, that makes sense. And are we still gonna use MRC to vaccinate?
Yes, my plan is to reach out to MRC. I'm going to reach out to school nurses to see if would be interested. And
Okay.
some of the medical advisory team had expressed interest in volunteering as well. So I was going to reach out to them.
Yeah, you can
Awesome.
shoot me some dates.
Okay, great.
And I'm happy to help on the admin end if you need
Perfect.
anything.
That would be great.
and you've
Um,
done color, Chelsea. Excellent.
Yeah. I have my login now. Okay, and Heather Taylor, and I know we had a lot on this agenda and again, but I really think we needed to take our time and discuss some of the other things.
Mhm.
Is there anything on here that you want to do in the next 2 minutes before we meet after?
I think the vaccines was an important one.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. All right, so I think so I'm guessing that we're gonna need 2 meetings in November. And Taylor and Heather, I think as you get closer with the vaccine stuff, just let us know if you need us to meet again next week.
Yeah.
Once you kind of have an answer, if we need to do a quick follow-up, we can certainly do that next week. I'm not sure if we can meet on Tuesday because it wasn't, I think because we don't have an election, we can meet on Tuesday if we needed to, but I can double check on that. But just let us know if you need us before the 16th.
Great.
Otherwise, we'll see you on Monday
Yes.
at town meeting. Okay. Anybody else for public comment with our last minute? Mr. Lett.
I did just, because it's just 30 seconds, it's sort of related to the vaccine. We do have the communication intern working on the Facebook page. And so the pictures are in
yes.
the packet for our profile and our picture and postings maybe starting on that. And I did sort of want to mention that with our Southborough interest, with the email list that we've gotten for the 5 to 11-year-olds, that postings, when we have our dates, would go first to our email list. A Facebook post can be picked up by anybody basically in Massachusetts. So just, you'll see us posting, but we're taking into account also preferred, communication with the email list, and also to have our folks who expressed interest have a little time before it's posted. So we'll
Okay.
be using that sort of
That makes sense.
appropriately, our Facebook postings.
Okay. Mr. Litt, you have 10
Okay,
seconds.
So,
Just
so
kidding.
2 quick things. The first is not to be lost in the budget discussions is the issue of admin support. You had wanted a full-time admin and the sharing arrangement didn't work, so you need to revisit that.
Yeah.
As part of it. And the second thing is that in the discussions about reserve fund and other funding sources, the current printed budget is always the baseline against which next year's is measured. And so that, I think, was one of the other motivations for wanting to go to town meeting. I think you need to keep that in mind as you look going forward. That's it for me for now. Thanks.
Thanks, Tim.
And thanks
Thank
again
you.
for,
Oops, I just muted him.
I said, and thanks again for posting the meeting packet. That really helps us.
You're welcome. We only got through 25% of it though. All right. All right. I move that we adjourn at 12:01.
I second the motion. Aye.
Okay. Medina, aye. Is aye. And Malinowski, aye. Okay. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.
All right. See you Monday.
Hmm? I don't know, little girls. Hmm? Mm-mm.